Recently, I sat down and watched The Lion King with my little siblings. As a child, I remember The Lion King being one of my favorite Disney movies. The characters are relatable, the animation is beautiful, the songs are memorable, and the whole thing is just so magical. On top of all this, it has one of the best Disney villains of all time, Scar. As a child, Scar represented the epitome of evil to me. He killed Simba's father, made Simba feel responsible for it, then went on to be a horrible king and absolutely mess up the circle of life. Although, his Be Prepared performance is actually stunning. Gotta give him credit for that. Watching The Lion King recently, I found myself having a newfound respect for just how great a villain he is, and made me think of another villain who is both unforgettable and objectively one of the greatest of all time. Heath Ledger's Joker from The Dark Knight. Between the skilled writing and the incredible acting, that is another antagonist that will go down in history as one of the best. By taking a closer inspection of both Scar and the Joker, I found striking similarities, and I think these similarities hold the key to what makes them such amazing villains. But first, I need to explain myself, because I bet you're thinking, hold up just a second. The Joker? Really? He's a completely different villain in a completely different kind of movie. I mean, first of all, The Lion King is a kid's movie, and The Dark Knight is, well, definitely not a kid's movie. Also, the villain's relationship to the protagonist is completely different. Also, the Joker's goal is to create chaos, while Scar's goal is to create new order. How are they at all similar? Well, just bear with me for a second, and I'll show you. Of course, there will be spoilers for both movies, and if you haven't watched either of them, I highly encourage you to. The key to these villains' similarity and their greatness lies in the sort of obstacle they are to the protagonist. Both the Joker and Scar are psychologically tough rather than physically tough, and that is an issue both main characters must deal with. Let's start with Scar. From the beginning of the movie, it is made clear that he is not physically imposing. He is a scrawny lion that doesn't pose much of a threat in that way. In fact, one of Scar's first lines makes this point, and indeed the point I'm trying to make in this video, very clear.
As far as brains go, I got the lion's share, but when it comes to brute strength, I'm afraid I'm at the shallow end of the gene pool.
Scar never even sees himself as a physical threat, but rather a mental one. Both Mufasa and Simba would have no problem taking him out if they went off of simple brute strength. The same can be said of the Joker. Batman is far more powerful and skilled when it comes to combat. Unlike Ra's al Ghul in the first movie and Bane in the last, the Joker is not a physical threat to Batman. Instead, the focus of his character is on the psychological aspects. Towards the end of the movie, he even admits that his goal is not physical dominance, but psychological dominance over the soul of Gotham.
You didn't think I'd risk losing the battle for Gotham's soul in a fistfight with you. You need an ace in the hole.
Both Scar and the Joker are villains that manipulate, and they do it well. Scar, through meticulous planning and malicious manipulation, makes Simba feel responsible for his father's death. Yes, I just put 3 words that begin with M's next to each other. I'm a freaking poet. Simba gets a guilt trip that makes him shy away from becoming the king he was meant to be. Similarly, the Joker makes Batman feel responsible for the deaths of so many innocent civilians and, of course, the death of the one he loved most. The biggest challenge for both protagonists becomes dealing with this misplaced guilt. Their biggest obstacle, then, is psychological rather than physical. Now, you might be thinking to yourself, well, many villains manipulate the heroes to feel a certain way. What makes the Joker and Scar so special? Well, in most superhero movies, as well as Disney movies, the protagonist must eventually either outwit or physically defeat the villain to gain victory, usually to the villain's death or demise. This is because most villains pose a physical threat that must be overcome in order for the hero to win. Not so with Scar and the Joker. Allow me to explain further. At what point in The Lion King does Simba actually win or Scar actually lose? Is it when Scar gets killed by the hyenas? I would argue it is before that. After Scar reveals that he killed Simba's father, Simba no longer feels responsible for his death and figures out that his uncle was manipulating him the whole time. Refusing to kill him, Simba utters the same words Scar told him years earlier.
Run. Run away, Scar, and never return.
This is when Simba truly wins. We already know he can outmatch Scar physically, but this is the point where he wins mentally. If Simba's main obstacle throughout the movie is psychological, then he wins when he gains the psychological victory, which is at that point. The short scuffle they have afterwards is really designed to provide a conclusion to Scar's character, but, as I said, there was no doubt that Simba was going to win that scuffle. The Dark Knight acts the same way. Batman, or in a larger sense Gotham, wins at first when both the convicts and the citizens refuse to kill each other in that very intense boat scene. The second win isn't when the Joker is captured, because he had been captured before and we all know what happened. F's in the chat for Rachel. Instead, the victory comes when Bruce Wayne gives up being Batman so that Harvey Dent can remain a hero figure in the eyes of Gotham. In both of these instances, Joker lost his main objective, the soul of Gotham. He wanted so badly to prove that everyone at their core was just as much of a psychopath as he was, and he failed. Batman may have won the physical fist fight with Joker, but the true win came with the psychological victory. Certainly there are other villains that are similar to these two, and I don't want to make it sound like Joker and Scar are completely unique characters. I just thought these are two of the best representatives of why a villain that poses a major psychological obstacle can be, and often is, so much more memorable than one that poses primarily a physical obstacle. Why is this the case though? Why do people consider villains like Scar and the Joker to be great villains? I think the answer comes down to a simple principle: relatability. The people who are watching these movies are not superheroes. They are normal, everyday people. Real-world challenges are not normally physical in nature. Most of us don't have a bad guy we need to beat up in order to reach our goals. The obstacles we face are mental instead of physical. Our enemies are thoughts or people telling us we can't do something we want to do, or we can't be someone we were meant to be. The goal for any storyteller is to make the characters believable, relatable in some form or fashion. By having the very same sort of obstacles that we normal people have, the heroes in these types of movies are so much more relatable and the villains so much more intriguing. Believe me, I'm a sucker for a good guy beat up bad guy action-packed sequence. But what I enjoy most of all is a story where I can relate to the main characters and sympathize with their internal struggle. A movie villain such as Scar or the Joker that attacks the internal rather than the external allows me to do just that. But these are just my thoughts on the matter. What do you all think? Do you think this makes villains stand out? Or do you think a villain that poses a physical challenge is more interesting? Let me know in the comments below. Make sure you like and subscribe, and if you have any other video ideas, please let me know. Thanks for watching.